Before we start the usual proceedings, I'm sure we are all saddened to learn about the death of former councillor Terry Brown, who was the mayor in 2008 and to 2009. If we could all stand for a minute's silence, please. Thank you very much indeed. Would the group leaders like to make some comments with reference to Councillor Brown? Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some very sad news, and on behalf of the Labour group, very difficult time. It's always shocking when somebody dies suddenly, particularly when somebody as a big a character as Terry dies at such a young age. I think is terrible. In terms of, I'm sure other members will talk about Terry far better than I can, but just to share with you, Terry was the reason I'm probably here tonight, because many years ago, probably 20 odd years ago now, he turned up at our door looking for his nomination papers being signed, thinking that Tony Waltmore, Vanessa's uncle, still lived at the house, and knocked on our door and eventually dragged me off to a branch meeting, and all those hours of leafleting, campaigning, spending time in council meetings, I can thank Terry Brown for. So thank you, Terry, for giving me into this situation. He was a long-standing councillor for many years, and a campaigner for the Labour Party. The reason he knew my wife, Vanessa, was they were in the Young Socialists together, again, back in the 1980s, so he goes back an awful long way with many people in Chorley, and particularly in Chorley Labour circles. His campaigning helped us take control of this council. Terry was an inveterate deliverer, knocker on doors, and therefore, he helped form this administration back in 2012, and therefore it was also around that time that he was also mayor, as you point out, Mr. Mayor, just at the cusp of when we were in opposition. I know Terry really loved the role of being mayor. It was a big ambition for him to represent, as you are, Mr. Mayor, the town where he came from, the town he really loved. And it's very sad when, like I said, the passing of somebody like Terry, who was definitely Chorley through and through. He will be missed by many members in this room and in the wider Labour family, and also by the residents who represented for all those years. A character and one of ours, and we pay our respects, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Borden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll pass the opportunity for Councillor Walker to say a few words, as he's known him better and for longer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the Conservative group, can I pass on our sincere condolences to Terry's family at this very sad time. I've known Terry for over 20 years. He was a lovely man, highly respected by all, very passionate about his role as a borough councillor and county councillor for the Chorley East Ward. He represented his constituents with great enthusiasm and was dedicated to doing his very best for the local people. I sat along with Terry for many years on the licensing committee, and he always had plenty to say, but to make sure the licensing laws were upheld. However, on many hearings that he was involved with, he did not always agree with the final decision of the committee's chairs. Apologies to Councillor Williams. But after much debate, accepted the final decisions, whether in his favour or not, with a smile, shrug of the shoulders, That was Terry all over, a respectful and dedicated councillor. He would be sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any ward councillors wish to speak or We'll start with the ward councillor. Councillor Asina Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It brings me great sadness today, stood here after the passing of my friend, dearest friend, Terry. Terry was a big part of my life and my family. Terry came into my life 16 years ago when I was a candidate in Chorley East for the first time. He became my colleague, then my mentor, my friend, and then my family. I'm the eldest of 5 siblings and did not know what it was like to have an elder sibling until Terry came into my life. He always protected me and I felt protected around Terry. He always guided me, but Terry always thought he knew best. So it was Terry's way or no way. I had a lot of respect for Terry and a lot of love for him, and I never argued. Terry has greatly contributed to the person and the politician that I am today. He's going to leave a big void in many people's hearts and lives, but mainly his family. He was an amazing guy. Thank you.
Councillor Zara Khan.
I feel like a few words won't do justice to the man Terry was and how much he meant to us all. He supported me from the very beginning of being a young councillor and was my biggest fan, and became not only a Dear Ward colleague but a member of the Khan family. I know the people of Chorley East will be sad to hear of his passing. He was so well known on so many doorsteps. I will miss all his wise advice from all his years in politics and his unwavering need to be right. I can still hear him tell me to wake up at 5 a.m. to get the leaflets done, which I still haven't managed to this day. Rest in peace, Terry.
Councillor Nevin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can just add a few words to those expressed by my colleagues. Terry Brown has variously been described as a mentor, which leads me to ask, how many of us here owe our place to something that Terry did or said? I sit now in Terry Brown's seat. I got here by standing on his shoulders. I do not replace him. It is impossible to succeed him. Terry will always be Councillor Brown, and he will always be the councillor for Chorley East, the ward to which he dedicated 19 years of public service. I will greatly miss him, as will my ward colleagues. There was so much left that he had to do. There was so much more I had to learn from him. The years we spent campaigning together across Chorley, in freezing weather, in early mornings and late evenings, will remain with me for the rest of my life. For Terry, there was always another mountain to climb and another battle to be won. I vividly remember how on election results day, he was avidly scrolling the exact voter numbers down on a notepad. These were the numbers to set as the benchmark for next year, the numbers to improve upon. So he never stopped fighting. I believe his loss carries a particular kind of pain in Chorley East. This was a man who dedicated 31 years as a councillor, 19 of which were to East Ward. Terry set the standard for a model councillor. He represented the highest ideals of public office: commitment, integrity, decency. Ideals for which he will be remembered. He was a rare kind of councillor, and I know conversations will be had at this council and many other places about how best to honour his legacy. All that remains to be said now is that Chorley Council truly has lost a heavyweight champion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nevin. And finally, probably someone who knew Councillor Brown better than anybody, Councillor Adrian Rowe.
Thank you, Chair. I have had the pleasure of knowing Terry for over 30 years. There's, I think, a couple of other members within this chamber tonight who have shared that experience. I have the pleasure to call him, in effect, my friend, as well as my colleague. He was my deputy in 2007, and then obviously he became mayor in 2008. I had the privilege of knowing him not only before his East Ward days, but in the old Chorley West Ward when he was delivering these leaflets at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. He was a formidable campaigner. He was my predecessor at Street Scene, and obviously I had the privilege of sharing cabinet responsibility and chair of various committees over the years. Just a couple of other quick comments, Mr. Mayor. In terms of what wasn't probably widely known, but in his younger days, he was the manager of various junior football clubs within the borough and took a very passionate interest in football and basically all sports, as well as fishing as well. I'd like to obviously just send my condolences to Adam, his son, his grandson, his mum, his 2 sisters and the wider family. And to sum up, Mr. Mayor, that one of the tributes that I've seen on social media, we've lost a good one. Charlie has lost a good one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Obviously, the funeral arrangements have been circulated to all members, and I will be representing the council, and anyone else who can join me will be most appreciated and appropriate. Thank you. We'll move on now to... We have some members joining us via Teams, and members of the public are welcome to observe the proceedings on YouTube. Due to regulations surrounding voting, only those members physically present are able to vote. However, if members at home would like to contribute to the debate, please use the raise hand function on your iPad. For members in the council chamber, if you would like to contribute to the debate, please raise your hand and I will invite you to speak. When you're speaking, please speak towards the microphone so everyone can hear you. If anyone is having issues, please let Democratic Services know. Now some housekeeping. Please respect the COVID safety measures in place. They are there for everyone's safety. We are not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the way you came in. Please ensure that all mobile phones are switched to silent. Mine's in the parlour, so there's going to be no accidents on that front. If the technology fails, then I will adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve the issues. Or if this is not possible, a new date and time will be organised. Moving on now to item 1, apologies. And the apologies are... Yes, please.
We've got Councillor Alice Hilton, Councillor Harold Heaton and Councillor Keith Idden is joining via Teams, as is Councillor Roy Lees, which means that they won't be able to vote, but they will be able to participate otherwise.
Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to submit apologies from the floor? If not, could you please propose... Oh, no, sorry. This is the minutes of the next meeting. Right, okay. Item 1 now is the minutes of the meeting Tuesday the 16th of November 2021 on your council agenda pages 5 to 12. Councillor Bradley, you're introducing this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I propose that the minutes of the meeting taken on the 16th of November are taken as a true and correct record? Thank you, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Wilson.
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Right, okay. The recommendation is that the minutes of the meeting be approved. Does anyone wish to vote against that or speak against them before we take the vote? No. So we will take those as an approved record of the minutes of that meeting. Item 2 is declaration of any interest. Members are reminded of their responsibilities to declare any pecuniary interests in respect of matters contained in this agenda. Is there anyone wishing to declare an interest of that nature? No, it would seem not. Thank you. Item 3 is Mayor's announcements. I've 3 announcements to make. First of all, I need to remind members, because it would be remiss of me to not do so, the Mayor's 007 Casino Royale Charity Ball. Tickets will soon be on sale for my 007 Casino Royale themed charity ball taking place in the Lancaster room on the 26th of March. Further details will be circulated very soon, and believe me, it is a place to go. Secondly, one of my community groups I am supporting as mayor is Chorley and Bloom. I have given them one of my free uses of the Lancaster room to enable them to hold an event to help raise awareness of the group and the fantastic work it does in the community, and to offer advice and information on gardening and biodiversity to members of the public. The event will take place on Saturday, the 19th of March, from 10 till 4 o'clock, and will include a number of speakers providing experts advice on to all gardeners. There also will be a range of stalls to visit along with some gardening demonstrations. Entry will be free of charge, and there is no need to book in advance. I've also had a note from Councillor Boardman, who's informed me that one of Chorley's greatest, as Dave Riding, he's originally from Bretherton and trained on Pendle Dry Ski Club slope, and is part of the Great Britain team for a number of years. He has recently become a gold medalist in the World Cup gold medalist in the Kitzbühel slalom. So it's I know all about Kitzbühel. It's in Austria, isn't it? It's good how Google comes in loose. Right. But I think it's appropriate that we mention him at this meeting. There are many talented people in Chorley, and when they reach such high accolade as to move from practicing on Pendle ski slope to Kitzbühel slalom, one of the most prestigious events in the world, I think it's very worthwhile making a note of that. And congratulations to him, and I'm sure his family are very proud indeed. See what happens when you go off script. Public questions. There are no public questions have been received in the appropriate timescale. Item 5, Executive Cabinet, pages 13 to 16, and to follow 299 to... No, follow...
In the second to follow back.
On the second to follow 99 to 102. This item is for noting and will be introduced by Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I recommend that those notes on the Executive Cabinet meetings held on the 11th of November, 9th of December and 20th of January are taken as a true and correct record and reported back to the meeting? Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I will now invite members to comment if they so wish. Does anyone wish to comment? Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just a quick question, really, for clarification. Thank you. It's agenda page 14, neighbourhood priorities deliveries. I just wondered if Councillor Murray could just let the councillors know our drop dead date for this year's submissions, if possible, then we can pass it on to everybody else.
Yes, of course. Well, you should all have had your agenda notification. I think they're in the diary for the neighbourhood meetings for this time. So the priorities need to be chosen at the meeting, of which you can have up to 4. Some meetings have already taken place, and I remember, Councillor Boardman, at your particular meeting there was some frustration and confusion about timescales, but I did say at that meeting that the next round would start in January, so you needed to think about it.
So the report is to be noted. Have we noted the report? Yes. Okay. Item 6, Overview and Scrutiny Committee and Task and Finish Groups, pages 17 to 22. This item is for noting and is to be introduced by Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I ask the members to note the report of the Overall Scrutiny Committee held on the 30th of September, the Overall Scrutiny Performance Panels held on the 28th of October, 16th of December and 13th of January, and then the update of the task group reviews. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Carr.
I wish to second that report, Mr Mayor.
Okay. I'll now invite members to comment. Does anyone wish to comment? Okay. This is an item that needs noting, so can I take it that it's noted? Okay. Item 7 is Governance Committee, pages 23 to 26 and to follow 107 to 110. This item is also for noting. Councillor Platt, you wish to introduce this?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Please can I present the Governance Committee meeting minutes from the 24th of November and the 19th of January. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Khan, you wish to second this?
I wish to second this.
Okay. This item is for noting. Does anyone want to comment or make comment prior to it being noted? If not, we will take it as noted. Item 8, this is an introduction. This is a decision that needs to be made and will be introduced by Councillor Bradley, and it's regarding committee appointments.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, as members can see from the agenda, there's a proposal to change some positions around, as there often is. The recommendation is to appoint Councillor Mark Clifford to the Governance Committee in place of Councillor Sarah Ainsworth, for Councillor Ainsworth to replace Councillor Clifford as a substitute for ourselves as reserve on that committee, and also to add a second reserve as Councillor James Nevitt as a reserve on that Governance Committee as well. And also there's a secondary proposal, Mr Mayor, to for Karen Derbyshire to be the council's nominee as a Help the Homeless charity trustee. So happy to propose those, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So those are the proposals. Councillor Wilson seconded them. Does anyone wish to comment? Yes. Councillor Walker.
Magdalene Collins as a substitute for our group.
Right, okay. Do we need a seconder for that then? Oh, just in time, thank you. Right, okay. So is that agreed? Sorry?
We'll need a vote on it.
Right, we need a vote on it. So is there anyone against it? No. It's a brand new year. All those in favour? Right. Anyone against? Anyone abstentions? Right, okay. It's the transfer from these virtual meetings where it was easier to ask if people were opposed to it because they were usually in the minority. No disrespect.
Are you saying, Mr Mayor, you'd rather we weren't here?
Don't allow him to hurt you, Mr Mayor.
I think we'll just have a rest, shall we? Can I continue, Councillor Bradley? Thank you. You're taking advantage of the fact that I can't hear anything anybody's saying, which is not helpful. Item 9. This isn't part 2, is it? This is part 1. Part 1, okay. Right. Item 9 is land purchase to extend Yarra Valley Country Park. This item is also for decision and is to be introduced by Councillor Wilson and to be seconded by Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I say, Mr Mayor, that I'm all for your new way of doing business. I thought this was a deliberate ploy, given it's pretty cool in this room and you wanted to get through business quickly. So on the same theme, Mr Mayor, I'll try and get to the point as quickly as I can on this item. Obviously an item that's very close to your heart, Mr Mayor, the purchase of land at Offberg Lane And as it says in the report, or it says in the opening sentence of the report, next to Yarrow Valley Country Park. So an obvious piece of land, perhaps to extend that country park and extend the green corridor, as it were, in the southwest of Chorley. The land itself has already got some woodland on it, but what it will do, Mr Mayor, is facilitate tree planting for the council. So it's part of our ambition to plant 116,000 trees. We'll be able to find a room for 10,000 trees in this particular plot. But also, Mr Mayor, it allows us to contribute and improve the biodiversity in that part of Chorley, because, of course, again, we've got some grassland and some wetlands as well. So the report also identifies that the benefits brought through the biodiversity gain, as it were. So the cost of the land, it says in the report, is £250,000, and that is to be financed through borrowing. So the proposal is that we purchase this land as outlined in the report, and of course then that we can make this significant contribution to the environment in terms of improving and extending the country park, and making a big step towards that pledge on planting more trees to help our environment and improve air quality. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will formally second that, but it's nice to be buying land for all these good environmental reasons and not just for houses. So happy to second that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. I know I'm not supposed to, but I will anyway. I think it's truly enlightening for a council to be buying land to do something other than building houses on it, and I commend it as well. Thank you. That's me being non-political. Right, this item is for decision. Does there anyone wish to speak against it? You wish to speak against it?
Thank you.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Not speak against it, Mr Mayor.
Right.
Definitely not speak against it. Speak, but not speak against it. It's just in relation to agenda page 27, paragraph 6. And yes, this group does support the council in buying land. You'd be happy to know. But what we just wouldn't want this council to do is over the next 8 years borrow money to buy land, just to plant trees, just to get biodiversity net gain, to offset carbon from the buildings. I just hope the council take it seriously and start looking at the bigger picture, which is to address the fundamental issue of carbon neutrality and not just buying land to offset it. So yes, we fully welcome this proposal and we support you in it, and we'd love to see more trees in that and love to see the extension of Yarrow Valley Park.
Thank you. It's worthy of a comeback, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, no, it's just to say, I'm sure Councillor Boardman has read in detail the climate change strategy which went to Cabinet last week. So you can see all the things there that are being designed to achieve genuine carbon neutrality, as it were, rather than, as you say, buying land for offsetting. But the point is, we come back to the pledge on the trees, of course, which this helps facilitate as well. So I would hope that the Conservatives will always continue to support those efforts as we go forward, rather than perhaps trying to put some dividing lines in.
Doesn't seem to be a lot of elbow room on the road to Damascus at the moment, does there? So, anyway, that's a good thing. Thank you. Can we move to a vote now? All those in favour? Sorry, have I missed someone out? Sorry, Councillor Platt. It's this window, it's getting colder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It was just that originally the land was a bigger piece of land and there was a chunk taken off, and I just wondered if it was quite a strategic chunk that was taken off, but also if that might come along a little later, like in a year or two, come back to the council to be bought at another point. Thank you.
To be honest, I don't, in terms of about the possibility of it coming back, I don't know whether that will be available or not, but obviously if it is, despite Councillor Boardman's sort of caution, then obviously we would look at it. There's no question of that, given the area that it is in. But like I say, I'm not aware that that would be an option for us.
Right, not wishing to bounce people into a vote, I will look carefully now to see if there's anyone else wishes to speak. No, we're done. Okay. So, can we take this to a vote now? The item is for decision. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? No. Okay, item 10. This item is also for decision. Councillor Platt. Yeah, we're getting a bit dizzy.
The next financial year.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Cal.
I second that proposal, Mr Mayor.
No. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Unanimous, as you say in English. Right. Item 11. This is an item for decision and will be introduced by Councillor Bradley, and it's all about Greater Lancashire Deal. It's on pages 39 to 56 of your agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and obviously members are aware, some members are aware that we had a bit of a briefing session before the council about this matter, so some members have had a chance to study the papers in more depth as well. Mr. Mayor, it's no surprise to you and many others in this room, Lancashire has a long and checkered history of joint working. I've been leader for over 10 years now, and in all that time we've had numerous conversations, numerous arrangements, and they've all at different times collapsed, fallen apart or discontinued, mainly because Lancashire can't agree with itself. So this latest iteration is around a county deal. That's the current government's vehicle for dealing with areas, particularly two-tier areas. Most of the devolution deals that have been undertaken across the country have been in city areas where you tend to have unitary authorities or single-tier authorities, and therefore it's been easier in some of those areas to get agreement around deals, although very difficult in some areas as well. So following the last round of elections in May, Mr. Mayor, the new administration at County Hall, led by Councillor Williamson, assembled all the leaders as part of our regular leaders sessions that we have, and we have had over the previous years, and suggested that there was an appetite in Lancashire for approaching the government or discussing with the government around a county deal. There are a number of options with a county deal, Mr. Mayor. It could be the county council just goes and speaks to the government itself. It could be the county council and the two unitary authorities of Blackburn and Blackpool go and have that conversation with the government around doing something as well. But as Councillor Williamson outlined to all of us other leaders, district leaders, unitary leaders and obviously yourself, their preferred model was something that involved all the three types of councils that we have in Lancashire. So that is all the districts, of which we are one, the county council and the two unitary authorities. That was back in June, July, Mr. Mayor, of last year. We agreed that it was worth considering and pursuing this option. There were emerging conversations around the things that we would like to discuss with government, which would be not so much, Mr. Mayor, current powers that councils had, but more about the devolution of powers from Westminster and from Whitehall to Lancashire. So money that would be spent in Lancashire by the government, instead being given to Lancashire to add to what we already do, to give us a bit additional control and to devolve some of those powers to Lancashire. Obviously, Mr. Mayor, to do that, the government would have to enter into a conversation with Lancashire. Lancashire is very clear. There is no agreement at the moment around a mayoral kind of combined authority. It's always been a rather divisive item, having a mayor who can represent all Lancashire. It was also recognised that every council is sovereign, and therefore every council has its existing powers and its existing roles and what have you. So the decision was to concentrate on what additional powers we would like to have, what additional things we could do that would particularly improve people's economic situation, so jobs, skills, incomes, etc. Also things, Mr. Mayor, around the environment and climate change, as you would expect. Things around the transport infrastructure on wider connectivity, so things like broadband and interdependencies between communities. and also, Mr Mayor, around opportunity and levelling up a little bit, to quote the famous phrase, of our communities. So things around access to decent housing, access to decent start in life, and access to decent education. So all those sort of things we decided were priorities for Lancashire by the different leaders of a political mix. We've got Labour leaders, Conservative leaders, and a Green leader who is running a Rainbow Alliance up in Lancaster, so a cabinet of all different shades. They agreed those priorities. They've put in place, Mr Mayor, or we have put in place over those months, a number of base governance rules, which are referred to in the report, which are very much around one member, one vote, around the fact that there's a power of veto for things being done in your area if you don't agree to it, and around, I think of the other ones, Mr Mayor, just bear me a sec, and around the fact that that it's about consent, if you like, and things not being done to you, so you can't be compelled to do things. So everybody has the ability to have a view put. It's not about one council being bigger than another. It's about collective decision making and not affecting existing statutory functions or discretionary functions that you're doing as a council currently. So it's about doing additional things to what we're currently doing. The themes have been explored in the document, as you can see from the appendix attached, and the whole purpose of this, as it shows on the diagrams in pages 42 and 43, is to work towards a wider plan that's been being put together for the last few years of what Lancashire will develop to over to 2050. So whilst the previous administration at County Hall and along with other Lancashire leaders have commissioned a study to say what Lancashire might look like in 2050, so there's a forward plan for particularly economic activity, but wider matters as well, to feed into that by any devolution deal that's at the moment. So the proposal that's come back to this council and will go to every other council in Lancashire, they started yesterday at County Hall with the County Council decision, and I welcome the fact that County Council supported this position, was the three recommendations, which I'll read out on paragraphs 2, 3 and 4, which is we are asked to support the outline Our New Deal for a Greater Lancashire, as detailed in Appendix 1, as the initial draft basis for further discussion and development of a possible county deal for Lancashire, agree the principles of governance set out in Appendix 2 for any future deal, and agree that the leader of the council continues to work with other Lancashire leaders in line with the principles agreed in those recommendations 1 and 2, and know that any formal proposals are required to come back to this full council in due course. So, going back to the fact that every council is sovereign, the fact that we all have to agree to do this, whatever proposals are worked up by the leaders group moving forward, and if I'm not there, Councillor Wilson will be, or a suitable substitute at each of those meetings, given that basis, then it will have to come back to this authority to be signed off by this authority before we enter into anything further. At the moment, there is no intention to make this body a commissioning body or a spending body or an accountable body, because at the moment, Lancashire County Council will act as the accountable body. In due course, that may well change. And personally, I think it should change, because I think it needs to have, whatever this body ends up being, it has to have a level of autonomy over and above the constituent councils. But at the moment, all we're asked to deal with is these three principles, very simple, very basic, but at the moment, and touch wood, and seeing how this week goes with these decisions in councils, all 15 councils agree to these principles. If we can focus on what we agree on in Lancashire, we'll do a lot better than having lots of heated debates and disagreements and discussions about what we don't agree on and we may never agree on. So on that basis, Mr Mayor, happy to take questions, happy to recommend this to the council, and I hope we can all support it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to second this. I know that Councillor Bradley's worked very, very hard on this, as he has with previous efforts to try and get some common working across the Lancashire authorities. I wish him every success with this latest version. What comes of it, of course, we'll have to wait and see, but I know that it's not easy, and trying to keep people on board and keep authorities on board is difficult. So let's hope that eventually we can get some extra leverage in to Lancashire and get some extra funding as well from central government as a consequence of working together.
Okay, thank you. This is a significant matter. Does anyone wish to speak on it? Yes, Councillor Riggan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Like you and a few others here yesterday at County Hall, I voted for these recommendations as a county councillor, and this evening I look forward to voting for them as a Chorley councillor too. As you know, yesterday I spoke in support of the deal in my role as Cabinet Member for Economic Development and Growth at County Council and of the opportunities this deal offers Lancashire. I don't intend to repeat that speech today. Instead, I wanted to speak in support of the deal as a Chorley councillor, and especially a proud one today. As someone who's been close to negotiations and compromises that all parties have had to make to reach this point, I'm only too well aware of the works, the drafts, the changes, the meetings the leader of our council here has had to undertake and read through. I can honestly say that Councillor Bradley, as well as our Chief Executive, who isn't here tonight, have played crucial roles in getting us to this point today, and we should all thank them for that. Lancashire has long required leaders, and our council has one. Don't get me wrong, Mr Mayor, I'll probably continue to disagree with Councillor Bradley on most of his suggestions and proposals. I'd written, but not today, but I believe that's going to change in about 20 minutes' time, so I'll stage that to on this. But honestly, voting for this is the best thing for Chorley and for Lancashire as a whole, so well done, Alistair, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. It's good to see that nobody in this chamber is playing politics with this very important issue. Right. Just make sure there's nobody else wish to speak. No. Okay. The item is for decision. I'll go to the vote now. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That is also unanimous. Congratulations. Thank you. Moving on to item 12, questions asked under Council Procedure Rule 8. No questions have been received. Item 13 is to consider the notice of motion given in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 10. It's on your agenda papers, pages 57 to 58. I have it here that Councillor Collins is proposing it and Councillor Riggott is seconding it instead of Councillor Boardman. Is that correct? Right, okay. Yours is the floor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I submit my notice of motion as distributed and reserve my right to speak within the debate. This motion I'm proposing is a friendly motion. It's one I proposed at Lancashire County Council, which gained unanimous support right the way across the chamber, including all of the Labour County councillors here, all the Labour County councillors that were present, the Greens, the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives. It's what really is about where do we go and how do we tell our story. I think that one of the things that we're asking as well, and I'm not sure everybody is aware, that during March there's going to be a climate summit which is going to be hosted by Lancashire County Council. It involves certainly some key ministers, involves a lot of people involved in the climate debate. And one of the things that I know is going to be asked at that is all of those people present there sign up to Race to Zero. One of the things I do is I certainly welcome the documentation and the strategies that were put forward last week. I think obviously it's a good starting point. There's a lot more information still to come and a lot of targets will come out of that. And I very much welcome the stance that this council is taking. What this motion actually does is call on the executive member on behalf of the council to sign up to Race to Zero. Race to Zero is a UN-backed global campaign rallying non-state organisations. These non-state organisations include companies, cities, regions, as well as financial and education institutions with the commitment to take rigorous and immediate action to halve global emissions by 2030 and deliver a healthier, fairer, zero-carbon world in time. By committing to Race to Zero, all organisations are committed to the same overarching goal of reducing emissions across all scopes swiftly, fairly, and in line with the Paris Agreement, with, and this is the important part, transparent action plans and robust near-term targets. Race to Zero mobilises a coalition of leading net zero initiatives representing 35 regions, 799 cities, 4,475 companies, 731 education institutions, 250 financial institutions, 3,000 hospitals and 45 healthcare institutions. And in signing this council will be joining other councils, including Greater Manchester, Taunton and Wiltshire County Council, who have already signed. All organisations signing must meet stringent criteria, which will bring them to the start to credibly race to zero emissions. This is several alliance committed to halving emissions by 2030 and achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050 at the latest. So by signing it, what are we actually doing? Well, we will be committing to 1, reaching net zero as soon as possible and by mid-century at the latest, in line with global efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade and set an interim target to achieve that in the next decade. That's actually a far-reaching target. Chorley have set their own target, which was more ambitious to do that by 2030. It's about setting our own targets. So by signing up to this, we can set our targets. We don't have to wait till 2050. We can do it faster. But we're making public statements. Also by signing, within 12 months of joining, we will explain what actions will be taken towards achieving both interim and longer-term pledges, especially in the short to medium term, to take action, immediate action, towards achieving net zero consistent with delivering those interim targets, and also committing to report publicly both progress against interim and long-term targets, as well as the actions being taken at least annually. So as I say, promoting in this as a friendly motion, really, we go as far as we want to do. What we're saying and what we're going to be asked at the Climate Summit is literally to joining something right the way across the globe to achieve what we want to achieve and to importantly make sure that we actually display those targets and we're accountable to them. So, Mr Mayor, I move this note of motion, which will hopefully, as it did at Lancashire County Council, get the support of the whole of this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Riggott.
Second that, Mr Mayor, and reserve the right to speak.
Okay. Does anyone wish to... are we doing a debate this, or are we going to... have we got any amendments? Councillor Wilson.
Can I ask, Mr Mayor, that the amendment is circulated? Is that okay?
Yeah.
No,
You've got an amendment that wishes to circulate.
Do you want me to talk now, or do you want me to wait for everyone to receive it?
Let's get it circulated and give people a few minutes to digest it. So this is a friendly amendment to a friendly motion, am I taking it? Yeah. Does everybody have a copy of the notice of motion and amendment? Right. Is 5 minutes long enough?
They've got 4 paragraphs.
Pardon?
Well, you've got 4 paragraphs.
I know. Some people are slower readers than others.
They're having a recess in a minute. They're going out the room.
Again, in order to sort of maybe find out more information and sort out some wording that it can be deferred maybe to a cabinet meeting in the future in that basis, just so we don't get ourselves in a muddle. But like I say, the principle of
Who's seconding it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I always feel a bit stronger when it comes to the environment. You'll know me. So when it comes to something, it's all about getting the words right. Now, you've given some very good suggestions there, Councillor. You know, I wholeheartedly second the amendment to this proposed by my esteemed colleague, Councillor Wilson, because the climate emergency is happening right now. And it's vitally important we do everything we can as politicians to make sure we protect our environment for the sake of our children. The importance of protecting our environment and the need to work to becoming carbon neutral by 2030. You cite just other things together, 2050, different ways of doing it. And come on, let's start in cars about it's impossible, but wanting to make trees and the need to manage the laws of side of our roads. Indeed, the nature of water, mention rated services and so on. And staying out there, over council, talking to prevent, prevent fighting climate change. I think it's just another model consumer in straight party. Colours are likely to support this amendment. And let's get on with the real way to reach carbon neutrality. Enjoy the fantastic team, Councillor Bradley and Councillor Wilson. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And they can't hear the debate at all. So I think it's really fair that we either sort that out so they can hear the debate, or we postpone it for a little bit until we can bring these back online.
The fact that members is being away, messages are flying around, perhaps people should be turning the volume off, that might make it easier to hear as well.
Carry on with the meeting. We're not actively trying to stop anyone from participating or listening in, so it's a perfectly legitimate process of continuation. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought we were doing well until quite interesting and we will still supporting being agenda. I think one of the things that I've got problems with this portion is, first of all, as I say, it came down to the last paragraph more than anything. I think what we tried to put forward, and it's not about race to zero, it's not about lack of ambition. You create your own targets. Brilliant, if you can achieve by 2030, then that's great. It's already been through council, it's sorted. I think one of the things that we agree, that maybe an issue of like race to zero, such as race to zero, clarification, and legal advice on that one. I think the unfortunate part, and this is again from where Councillor Clifford spoke, he was more than happy to support this at Lancashire County Council, so he speaks with one voice in one place and a different voice in another, which is very interesting. I think very much so, so he's happy for one council to for me sometimes not to hear from one ear. I think it really just comes down to this last paragraph. That's the only difference. And I don't understand what the last paragraph says. And why that's which is opposed to this one, which is a sister campaign. I would think that's more than and he talked about the advice they'd had, but that hasn't been shared with council, so I don't know whether that's some private advice, whether that is the advice from our Director of Governance, and if so, it'd be interesting for all council to receive that advice. I always think that's good practice. If legal advice is offered to one side or one member, all members should hear that, so they can make informed judgment. I think that's a way to go. But I suppose what I would reference on is the final point. It talks about calling on Lancashire County Council to meet this council's ambitious plans. Well, the County Council, we have a cabinet member for environment and climate change, so an executive member who could sign this. I know Councillor Clifford because it's not quite in this council's front priorities. So as well, our priorities, which I'm sure you don't need me to read out because it was set before I was here. An ambitious council does also meet the needs of residents in local areas. So I'm excited about council who we are hoping to county deal. I would think we could. That's something this council should aspire to. If Manchester has signed it, which is something members on your side often aspire to and point to as the shining light, apart from maybe the clean air zone, you know, as something we should try and achieve, and they signed it. So how ambitious are we really?
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak?
Regions,
Right, okay. Seems to me, given that everybody's looking at the same door, it will be useful to address the issue so that we don't look divisive or divided in any way on this important issue. The green door. Who sang that? Right. Councillor Bradley, are you supportive of it being withdrawn? Right. So the proposal is that the notice of motion is withdrawn and represented at the next full council meeting, following discussions, cross-party discussions on this important matter. Are we all happy with that? Please show. Anyone against? Okay, that's carried. That's not the expected conclusion I was looking to, but there we go. What's a month? Item 14. Item 14.